What's up, y'all, and welcome back to Found Bytes, a game review series. My name is Brian, and I'll be your host. If you don't know about us, we're all about finding and testing out small, high-quality video games. This is a podcast that aims to respect your time and money as a gamer and a consumer by sifting through storefronts and sales to find those gems that may be worth your precious resources. But enough about the show. Let's get into our next game. Marfusha is the game for this week's episode. Marfusha is a fast-paced 2D tower defense shooter developed by Hinyari 9 and released in 2021. The game is available on PC, Switch, PS4, and 5, Xbox One, Series X, and S. So if I were to describe the game, I'd kind of say it's just a simple 2D twin-stick shooter. It's very similar to a game I played recently called Iron Meat, where you're just kind of walking along and you can aim the gun in sort of like a 360, but it stops at like different angles. It's super fast levels, and in between the levels, you're getting incremental upgrades. It functions a little bit like a roguelike in that respect, but instead of like doing a run, you're kind of doing a campaign, and you can actually jump out and jump back in, although the campaign's very short. And there is a challenge mode where it is like how far can you go. But it definitely feels like a run with the upgrades that you're getting and how you're leveling up your character, because the next playthrough you'll kind of have to do it all again. And the focus and what you're kind of feeling as you're playing, it's very militaristic and futuristic. So combining those two things alongside like this aspect of oppression that I feel like is almost comically present. So it kind of reminds me of like a little bit of Conscript, like the drabness of war, but then crossed with like Freedom Wars with this like insanely ridiculous oppression. And other than that, like I said, fast-paced levels, it's very quick strategy and choosing things to do in sort of a moment. That really ups the challenge, especially if you get into like the challenge mode or even like near the end of the main campaign. But there's a lot of replayability here, a lot of unlockable things, like you would have to go through the campaign a bunch of times and then try the challenge mode, get as far as you can, and certainly in the aspect of trophies, which we'll talk about. But other than that, it's kind of silly and witty, the dialogue, as well as the visuals with some of the characters. It's very anime. The game released with an MSRP of $11.99 on console, but it's $7.99 on Steam. I do not know why there's a discrepancy there. Seems a bit foolish, and we'll talk about value eventually. But runtime of the game, like I said, the campaign is not that long, and you'll probably do it a couple times. It'll only take you like 1.5 hours to get through the campaign. Now, to 100% complete the game, probably get the platinum trophy, maybe in like 7 or 8 hours, I feel. I've been playing it for 4 hours. I've been playing it on PlayStation. I got it on sale for $5.99. And in my 4 hours, I beat the main campaign twice, and I did the challenge mode a bunch of times. I got most of the trophies. I feel like I might be able to bang this out and get the platinum in like another 2 hours. So if you're into that, trophy hunting, I feel like this is very doable. And I think on PSN Profiles, it only has like a 3 out of 10 platinum difficulty. Like I said, the game was developed by Hinyari 9. This is a solo dev from Japan. So this kind of reminds me of when we talked about Solvars. That was also a solo dev from Japan. There's something going on there with a lot of, solo devs putting things together, these fast-paced, simple games or simplified games. It's interesting because I'm actually surprised this game is not on mobile, mainly for that reason. It's a simple game. It's fast-paced. You can get through the campaign. You can even 100% it in not that much time. So it's interesting that it's not on mobile. The game does have a sequel. So this is Marfusha Sentinel Girls. So the series is Sentinel Girls. And the sequel is called Snezinka. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. From what I understand, it's like another, Marfusha focuses on one soldier who's a Sentinel girl. And then I think the second one is like a different girl who is also a soldier. So it's interesting. I'm pretty intrigued by like where the series might go with sequels. But in terms of just hearing about the game, I had not heard about it. It was on sale. Gameplay looked interesting. The concept, like I said, reminded me of a lot of games I talked about. But I looked it up and raving Steam reviews, so I decided to give it a shot. All right, let's talk gameplay for Marfusha. Great name. I just love saying it, Marfusha. So let's get into the basics. So it is, at its heart, a 2D side-scroller. So just picture walking in a 2D plane. You can move left to right. I will say, in general, you're not going to need to move that much, especially in the battle levels. Like, you can move, but I feel like you're probably going to stay pretty stationary or near the gate or the edge that you're guarding. There will be times in between levels that you'll be moving left to right in sort of like a mini barracks or a mini sandbox, but it's really not that much. Most of what you're going to be doing is aiming your gun with the other stick. And you can aim it in a 360 arc, like you can aim it pretty much everywhere, but there are like points where it stops. It's like every 45 degrees, it kind of like, it's like a notch, like it sticks in there, which is actually really nice. I would not like it if it were just a free 360. So it's nice that it kind of stops you at specific angles, and then you can utilize those angles along with moving sort of back and forth to shoot what you need to shoot. So you're going to have a gun, and while you're aiming the gun, you can obviously shoot it. You can hold the trigger regardless of the rate of fire. If it's a machine gun or a pistol, you just hold the shoot button. There's a button to reload when your clip is out, but you can honestly just hold the shoot button through it and it'll auto reload. That's what you're going to want to do, because sometimes like it's not obvious that if you hit the reload button, like it's actually happening. There is a little icon that says reload, but I don't know if that means like, hey, you need to reload or it's currently reloading, because some of the guns actually reload at different times. Like some of them take longer. So I would honestly just suggest holding shoot, especially if there's enemies in front of you that have a lot of health. Like just keep holding the shoot button. You'll reload and then you'll instantly keep shooting. You're going to get consumables. So there are 2 different slots, and these are different, helpful weapons or devices to help you with defense, and they're going to be assigned to different buttons. So there's a slot for the triangle and a slot for the circle on PlayStation. Sometimes when you're walking, not in battle levels, but when you're walking sort of in the in-betweens, there'll be interaction prompts that pop up. And so you can interact with a thing and it'll tell you right below like what it'll be doing if you interact with it. And then other than that, sometimes in between levels, you'll be presented with different options on the screen and you can kind of cycle through and select. A lot of it is just buying rewards. So let's talk about pacing. And when we're talking about pacing, we're going to talk about the main mode. So on the main menu, you're going to see main mode and then challenge mode. So we're just going to talk about main mode first. So let's start with just the idea that this is a very simple structure of a game. You're going to go into a level, beat the level, go to a reward screen, and then you'll go to the next level, rinse and repeat. I would say the game has a pretty steady linear difficulty. Every so many levels, you're going to get to like the end of area boss. I think there's like 3 in total. The difficulty in that area will peak when you get to the boss, and each boss is kind of more difficult than the previous one. And what really helps you along while you're going through the main mode is just this consistent opportunity to increase your character stats. Like I said, in between each level, you're going to get to a reward screen. So that's going to constantly help you get your character better, get better weapons, so on and so forth. So just having that consistent opportunity really doesn't make this game that difficult. But there's going to be a lot of strategy in that, because what you choose as your reward, whether it's a gun or leveling up your character stat or anything like that, it's going to be up to you based on the status of things, how the level went, what your character might need to get better at, so on and so forth. Also, in between levels, something that sort of helps with the difficulty, at least in the main mode, is regardless of what your health is at the end of the level, as long as you beat the level, the health will regenerate. So you don't have to worry about that carrying over in the main mode. And like we were talking about, it is a pretty short campaign. It is replayable, especially if you're trying to unlock all the different endings, get the trophies, things like that. So like I said, I beat through the main campaign twice. It's really nice, though, because the game will save your progress, like if you need to leave, and it'll bring you back to wherever you were in between levels. But even if you die in a level and you're in the main mode, you're actually given the option to retry the level. So it's not like you have to worry about it being a roguelike in that respect, because it's not like you go until you die. Like, you go until you finish the campaign, and if you die, you retry the level. But you can leave, and the game will say, like, return to main menu, but it's going to save it so you can come back. And like I said, there is a challenge mode. This is really just like a level rush to see how far you can go. So there are a lot of differences here. The difficulty is more, I would say, exponential in this mode. And what makes it also more difficult is the fact that your health does not regenerate in between. So this mode is definitely a mode that you're going to want to play for trophies. This is where I think the game actually has its long legs. Again, because the campaign mode is pretty short. So let's talk progression, and this is kind of the same regardless of your mode that you're in, main mode or challenge mode. So the idea behind a level is you start it and instantly enemies are coming at you. And so you have to deal with them, you have to shoot them, and the goal of every level is to kill all the enemies. Now basically that means you have to outlast all of them and still have HP left. That allows you to win. So there's like a set number of enemies that are coming at you. You just need to outlast them and survive them. Of course, that's going to be different if you're doing the challenge mode or the main mode, because if you do the main mode and you have like almost no HP left, you don't have to worry about it. And basically what you are doing, how you're keeping that HP bar up, is you're actually defending a wall that's standing behind you. It's like you're defending the gates and you're a soldier. And so what you're going to want to do is not allow enemies to approach the wall. Either they're going to try and bash the wall and run in and get right in front of it and just hit it, or they're going to be able to shoot from afar. No matter what, you have to try and prevent that. So certain enemies, which we'll talk about, if they're shooting from afar, you want to try and kill them before they get to however close they need to start shooting. And like I said, you can move left to right. A lot of times in the beginning of the level, if like the enemies are coming in slower or it's not developing as quickly, sometimes I'll move out to the right to see how far out enemies are and if they're just big and slow to try and get the jump on them. As far as I know, you can move to the right endlessly, but I don't think you want to, because if enemies are zooming past you, all of a sudden you have to run back and your character's not really that fast. There is really great enemy variation, I would say. And what's going to vary about them is the speed that they move, the method that they approach. So some of them are going to be aerial and just fly straight, whether above you or at mid-level or even right directly in front of you. Some of them are going to walk at a slow pace. Some of them are actually going to jump. So it actually reminds me of like, old Mario levels or things like that. Some of them are going to be melee. Like I said, some of them are going to need to get right in front of the door or the gate and hit it. Some of them are going to shoot projectiles. Others are going to be like kamikaze, like these little exploding things with red blinking lights. Like you need to kill them before they get close. Like that should be your top priority. And what else is going to vary about them is their health bar. So like the kamikaze guys, you honestly just need to hit them with one bullet. The size of them. So some of them are going to be bigger, meaning there's like more area that you can hit. Some of them are going to do more or less damage to the gate. Like if one of these kamikaze guys hits the gate, they're going to do a ton of damage. And some of them are actually going to have like weak spots. It's not clearly telegraphed, but I find that sometimes on bigger enemies, when I'm shooting particular parts of them, it's doing more damage. It might just be because more bullets are hitting them, but I'm not sure. So with this variation in enemies, there's going to be different strategies and priorities that you may have, one of which we already kind of talked about, like you can point your gun at different angles. And so depending on what level the enemies are coming in, the angle that you're shooting may help or hurt you. Sometimes enemies will actually come in, especially the fast kamikaze guys, like they'll come in like a staircase formation. So if you just aim at a 45-degree angle, you might wind up peppering bullets and hitting all of them pretty easily. But that's something that you'll notice as you get used to seeing the levels. If it's your first time going through, you're going to find that you're honestly making a lot of split-second decisions. And if they don't go right, like if you let a ton of these kamikaze guys go past you, all of a sudden you can die pretty quickly. So those lessons will come up pretty quickly and you'll sort of click into place as soon as you die accidentally. There is currency in this game and a reward shop we talked about. So in between levels, you're going to go to the reward shop, but after you beat a level, you're almost going to get like a little arcade grading screen. It's like a little ticket that gets stamped. This is definitely what reminded me of Freedom Wars, just because of like the callousness of it. They slowly throughout the game tack on different taxes because like you're a soldier and you're getting paid to be there. So how you do in terms of how quickly you beat the level, maybe like how little damage got done to the gate, like those can kind of help you get more currency. But then slowly as you go through the game, just passively, they keep adding on unavoidable deductions and taxes. Like some of them are just absurd. And so it's kind of laughable. Like you're doing better and better, but like they're just taxing you more and more. I would say in any given level, you're probably going to make anywhere between 0 and like 20 currency. I think it's rarer to make 20. Like consistently you're going to get like between 5 and 10 maybe, but if you're really struggling you probably get less. There are definitely some levels where you're going to get 0, and so you're going to use this currency to buy certain rewards, and the reward screen will pop up. It's basically going to be 3 like cards that you're choosing from, and each one of them will have a price on them, and you're going to use the currency to pay. You get to pick one of them. I'd say there's a pretty great variation. A lot of these are going to be stat upgrades for your characters. So it'll be like upgrade this stat by 1 or this stat by 3. And the more that it upgrades, the more expensive it costs. You're also going to be able to get a new weapon that you can use, and it'll take the place of whatever weapon you had. You can get those consumables that we talked about. You might get a card that allows you to hire a partner, which will actually be like a passive turret that's behind you, kind of shooting at their pace, which can be really helpful, especially if you've got big enemies slowly approaching, because if they get close enough, it's you and your partner shooting at them, almost doing double damage. You're able to increase the defense level of the actual gate, or you can take no card, which is an option, or you can pay to redraw. I think it's like 5 currency to like redraw 3 new cards. You're definitely going to want to consistently upgrade your stats, get a new weapon, and we'll talk about some of that stuff. So let's get into your actual character. So we're talking about stats. All of your character's stats start at 0. And there are 6 stats. So your attack, which I think is just the raw damage output, the speed of your bullets, the speed of you reloading the gun, the magazine size, the accuracy of the bullets. So that's something you'll see visually, and the rate of fire. So what's interesting is these stats belong to your character, and they will always apply on top of any weapon's base stats. So you're constantly leveling these things up. But if you get a new weapon, it's just going to apply to that new weapon. So if you keep increasing like something like magazine size and you're using an assault rifle that has 150, it I think upgrades it by percentage. Like you might get a 10% boost, but if you have like a handgun that only has 10 bullets, then you only get 1 more. Each weapon is also going to have weapon durability, which is a sore spot for a lot of people. I don't think it's done that poorly here. I think it actually helps you sort of strategize and change up what you're doing. So when you get a weapon and you have one equipped, and you're looking at the reward screen, in the bottom left, it'll actually show you the current number for durability on the weapon that you currently have. And if this number is like 9 or 8 or 6, like that's all great. If it gets to be 3 or less, it'll start blinking red in between levels, trying to tell you like, hey, pretty soon this weapon is not going to be used. If you get to a point where in between levels, your durability of your weapon is at 1, you will then lose that weapon and go back to the basic weapon, which is just the normal pistol. If you're late in the game and you're using your pistol, you're probably going to lose that level. I mean, you can have a lot of upgrades to your stats, but the pistol has a small clip size, doesn't do a lot of damage, and the rate of fire is pretty slow. So you'll find pretty easily that like, okay, the pistol is kind of what you start with. You got to get a new weapon. So you want to keep your eye on that reward screen and the weapon durability number and plan ahead. So if the number's at like 3 and you see a weapon in the reward screen that like you want and you have the money, like you just got to pull the trigger. No pun intended. The different weapons are good and interesting, and I think most of them are pretty viable. They're going to have varying amount of damage, varying clip size, varying rate of fire, etc., all of those things. You're going to have things like an assault rifle, but then you'll have an advanced assault rifle. You'll have a machine gun, advanced machine gun, a light machine gun, advanced light machine gun, and then you'll have something like the shotgun, which I think sucks. The clip size is very small, and like unless enemies are right in front of you, you're not really going to hit them. So I was not a big fan of that, especially in some of the faster levels where like a lot of the kamikaze guys are coming in. Like I'm definitely all about the assault rifle, the light machine gun. Those things just rip. And there's also consumables. So these are specials. Again, there's 2 slots for them. It's kind of like different types of them, I think. Like one slot is reserved for more offensive things. Like it'll quickly, change your weapon to like a giant saw or a giant laser that'll do a ton of damage real quick. And then the other type is something more passive or defensive. Both of them are really nice. I would say if you have an open slot for one of them, definitely get something if it's there. If you see something that is defensive or passive and you really like it, but you already have something in that slot, if you get it, it will replace it. So you can only fit one of each type at any time. So you can have both of them stacked. I like some of the passive ones because what they'll do is, and it'll say it when you look at the reward, they will actually stay on the field in between levels. So some of them are like a barricade and they'll have varying levels, like level 1, level 2, level 3. And basically, if enemies come up to the barricade, they will have to attack the barricade and break it down before they get to the wall. Other things are like ground turrets, similar to your partner that you hire, like it's a passive shooting thing. There are air turrets where you put them on the ground and they shoot straight up, so they're going to help with flying things. There's spikes on the ground, there's mines, and again, a lot of these things will stay in between levels, which is really nice. So they're staying until the enemies wear them out. Every 3 levels, I would say, you're going to go into a different place. You're going to go like back to your barracks, which is like an in-between level. And it's this short 2D kind of walking level where you will actually get the opportunity to upgrade a stat. And there are a couple different options. Again, it's like you're in your barracks, so it's like you could go to the vending machine, you could go to the fridge, or you could go take a shower. And each one of them will upgrade different of your stats. Like the vending machine upgrades a random stat, the fridge upgrades your magazine size by 1, and then like the shower actually upgrades 2 different things. I think it's like rate of fire and accuracy. And then sometimes when you're in the barracks, there'll be a cutscene. It's not like a major cutscene like an anime cartoon or anything like that. You'll just like see a character and you'll see dialogue boxes. I think this happens more if you recruit a partner because then they'll stay in the barracks with you and sort of have like a personality. And then I think every like 10 levels is when you get to a boss. This is basically like a longer level. Sometimes it'll be just the boss. Sometimes it'll be boss and like swarms of enemies also coming in. And like the boss might phase in and out of the level. And then after this boss level is also like a cutscene. And then you're going to go to a new area. So the main mode will be like this happening 3 times. Like there's 3 main areas that's progressing the story. And then you'll get a final cutscene. Now what's nice is there are a lot of extras in the game. We talked about trophy hunting. The final cutscene is actually going to vary each time you beat the main mode. I think there's like 8 or 10 different final cutscenes. I'm not sure if that's a trophy. But you're going to unlock those different things as you keep playing. And then again, like I said, there's challenge mode, which is kind of like a free-for-all mode, like go until you can't, see as far as you can go. This also unlocks characters. So in the main mode, you're obviously Marfusha. But in the challenge mode, you can unlock different characters by getting far in the challenge mode, and then you'll unlock all of the different Sentinel girls, I guess, and each one of them will actually have like special abilities, whether it's like, they do well when they have this weapon, or anytime they use this consumable, they'll actually make 2 of them or something like that. So there's a lot of variety there. And all of this kind of swirling up to be a trophy hunting thing. Again, I feel like getting the platinum trophy is very doable. So if you're somebody who's into that, into sort of the collectathon or unlocking all the things, you're definitely going to have a doable experience on your hands. All right, let's talk about the vibe of Marfusha. So let's start with the visuals. This is pretty rough pixelation, especially in the backgrounds. It's super grainy. The environments are super basic. It kind of reminds you of like Street Fighter, like they're out of focus, they're blocky. The enemies and the characters in the foreground are a lot more detailed, but it definitely reminds you of like an old school brawler. whether it's like, an arcade brawler like Ninja Turtles or something like that. But your backgrounds are primarily going to be buildings, and the grounds are a lot of like just gray blocks. I think maybe sometimes they try to look like cobblestones or whatever, but they really come off as super pixelated. The characters, they're super anime. These girls with long hair, these big eyes, what you would exactly expect. And that's both in the game and in the cutscene when they're sort of standing still. It's very obvious that that's the vibe that they're going for. The colors are mostly bland and drab. Again, reminds me very much of Conscript, that idea of being in war. A lot of grays and browns and navies and blacks. I would say the most pop is the hair of the different characters. Like sometimes it's more red, sometimes it's like a beige or a white. So that's really where the color pops. And also the bright spots on enemies and the projectiles that they're shooting at you. Again, I think a lot of the enemies that have like blinking lights, like they're the urgent ones, like the kamikaze guys, like they're coming, they're a priority. Other than that, there are some other visual cues. Like when you aim, there's a laser pointing. I think you can actually toggle it on and off. I kept it on. It was very helpful. But it's pointing at the angle that you're shooting, so you know where it's going. As well as when you're shooting the bullets, again, you're going to have varying accuracy, so you'll see that like some of the bullets are not quite going on the laser line, and that's very helpful because, again, like if you're shooting at an enemy and like they're big and you're shooting straight at them, only hitting the bottom of them, you might want to move it up an angle so that even your low accuracy bullets are still going to hit them. From an audio standpoint, I felt like the music was good. It was fast-paced. Definitely matches the idea of the onslaught, like when you're in the levels. I don't know if I could discern it that much or like say the soundtrack rocks. I think it really fits. I do feel like it was tough sometimes to hear it over the sound effects. Sound effects in this game are heavy. And again, if you're just holding that button to shoot and holding it through to reload, primarily you're just hearing bullets go, and they are loud and fast and repetitive. I had to turn my speakers down a bunch because I felt like it was just hitting the bass, especially with the bigger like assault rifles or the machine guns. It was like doof, doof, doof. And it was so loud, it was overpowering the music. Logically, it makes sense. You're in war. There's a lot of bullets firing. But I tried to adjust the levels. I still felt like I was losing the music in it. So I don't know if I could fully appreciate the audio in this game. And finally, themes and settings. We talked about sort of a futuristic war. It's not so much with technology, but just the idea of, these Sentinel girls are not human. They're kind of androids, and you're fighting off a lot of robots. And eventually you realize like the humans are part of that army and they're coming to get you. Kind of a vague Nier Automata or Signalis, not just for the futuristic kind of android robots, but also for like the multiple endings and like what is actually happening. I know both of those games really got into that. I think with Nier Automata, it was definitely more sequential. This is maybe like alternate endings, I feel. I'm not sure because I haven't gotten them all. Also, this idea of oppression, we talked about it, but you're a soldier, and the grading screens that are like your pay slips with the taxes, they're just comically over the top. Like you have a fee for this, a fee for that. It just gets to be a bit laughable. Again, reminding you of Freedom Wars in between levels, or whenever you did something when you're sitting in the cell, it's like, oh, you just had 1,000 years added to your sentence. Like, what is happening? This is ridiculous. So just that over the top oppression. But then balanced with a little levity. The dialogue between characters, which doesn't happen that often, but it was pretty silly. There's a lot of, silly situations and embarrassing situations. But most of the levity was kind of rooted in this self-deprecation of the different characters, or even like gallows humor. And it kind of translated this weird feeling of worthlessness, like the actual soldiers, like what they're doing here, the terrible conditions they're in, like the barracks that you're in are just like a mess. I don't know who's in charge. It's interesting that all of the soldiers and like the leaders are all girls, but apparently also androids. You're not given a lot of info or context, which can let your imagination wander. I think the sequel might help with this, and I would be really interested to see where, the story goes, or if it's kind of zooms out more, if there's more games in the series. All right, let's wrap up the conversation about Marfusha. This is an interesting game, and I had an interesting experience with it. I definitely was drawn in by the setting and the vague feel. We talked about like the connection with Freedom Wars, sort of this future war, a little bit of oppression. But really what I stayed for was the quick, addictive, and satisfying gameplay. Like playing through the campaign a couple times, playing through challenge modes. Like I'm really into it. It's kind of that one more level mentality, similar to a roguelike, but obviously not the same thing. It feels good to aim and to strategize quickly and to choose your rewards. But honestly, like I wound up with my trigger finger in a lot of pain because, again, most of the time I'm just like holding that button because I'm just constantly shooting. It's definitely a trophy, platinum gettable situation. A lot of collectibles, that aspect. It could be simple and quick. Challenge mode is fun. It's a lot of the same, I would say, but somehow it just pulls me in. I would say the game is pretty simple. I don't know if I would say it's hollow because there's definitely something there, but I think a lot of people will say this game is a bit hollow. I am surprised this game is not on mobile. It definitely taps into the same sort of non-committal level of a game where you can be in and out, similar to Solvars. And there's something interesting about that. It's maybe that these games sort of have the tab on what's engaging and addictive in terms of mechanics, but these games seem to like understay their welcome, like almost like they're being too humble. And I'm just not sure where they fit in the landscape, especially if they're not on mobile. In terms of value, it's very tricky. I don't understand the price discrepancy between console and Steam, why it's $4 extra on console. I gotta say, I feel like 12 is too much. I would be really interested in this game being sort of in a collection with the sequel, and I don't know if there are games after this other game, but I would find this really valuable if there were maybe 2 or 3 games in a collection. I think that would be worth 15 or even 20. You're getting in the sequels more of the story, more of the world. It's a game that I played and I'm looking for more. I'm left wanting after it, and I think that's normally a good thing. I paid $6 for it. I'm really happy with that experience. I think it might be a little hard to justify more, but with all that said, I enjoyed my experience, and so I do recommend the game. Alright, that's going to wrap it up for this episode. Stay tuned for our next episode to see what new game we found for you.